I'm Lila Koski, CEO and founder of Koski Research. We are a custom research firm focused on helping companies deepen customer engagement. And prior to founding Koski Research about 10 years ago, I worked at Charles Schwab, where I managed a research group there, and bring that internal perspective of working with key stakeholders to make decisions and take action from research, as well as that research firm side perspective of helping our clients communicate those results and drive action within an organization. And I'm excited to be talking today to you about interactive reporting, because both Rudy and I know how important it is that you be able to communicate your insights to your organization and drive change within the organization. So with that, I'll just flip it back over to you there, Rudy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. And we're very honored to have Lila be doing this and talking about her experiences with the product. Just very quickly, Daprcy's been around for 12 years. We started in Sweden. We launched a North American company about 4 years ago, and we've been very blessed with having the ability to grow this business and have folks like you interested in what we're doing. We are fundamentally built for market researchers for online reporting, but we've also have the ability to take in any other type of marketing data. So with that said, let's let Lila get going, and I hope everybody enjoys what you see.
Great, thanks. And just to let everybody know, we have plenty of time here. The slides themselves are about 20-25 minutes, and we can take questions at the end, or if there are a couple questions that come up in between, we can try to address those as well. So what we're going to cover today is the when, how, and who of dashboards or interactive reporting. And specifically, when we're talking about when, it's really making the decision about either converting an existing study to a dashboard or implementing a dashboard for the first time on a new study. We'll talk about how to implement the project, what to do from the data structure and visualization side, and then the who of engaging stakeholders. So let's talk about the when first. When is a dashboard appropriate? So many of you listening here and looking at these slides today have been in this situation where you have to have an answer very quickly, even yesterday. And I know that from my days at Schwab as well. And more we're seeing our clients pressed for time and needing to have answers quickly. And so in working on dashboards with a number of clients, we've seen this be one of the main reasons. But in general, the old adage applies: as better, faster, cheaper, and dashboards or interactive reports really allow us to do that, provide information in a more timely way. So the three criteria for making the decision to implement dashboards really are asking yourselves the question, do you need to tell a simple visual story? So one of the reasons that we were really intrigued by Daprcy's platform was the ability to have a lot more flexibility in the way that we report data or research results. They have a lot more visualization than what we had seen typically with PowerPoint. So you can see from the image here, a lot of information. How do you organize that? And we know that storytelling and telling visual stories is more and more important to get our audience's attention. Second is what I was just saying in terms of having faster, more timely results. PowerPoint reports take a lot of time and resources to implement, and with dashboards we have the ability for our clients to upload data very quickly, almost instantaneously, and have those results more quickly. And then third, the ability to share results in an interactive way with more stakeholders, so allowing them to dig into the data. I know a lot of times that we internally in organizations distribute research results by sending out PowerPoints, either one-off in emails or to mass distribution lists, and we often don't know whether it's being viewed or how it's being taken in. And with the interactive reports that we've been doing for clients, we know that the stakeholders are really engaging with the data. So at the risk of sounding a little bit like an infomercial, if you're saying yes to one or more of those questions here, then probably implementing dashboards is right for your organization. So from there, once you've decided to actually go forward and bring dashboards on board into your organization, then the next step is really how do you make that conversion process work for your organization? And there are two key pieces of this that I really recommend thinking about. One is the data, and one is how do you visualize the data. So to set context for that, I want everyone to kind of think about this as both a creative process and an analytical one. So this is the homepage from our website, and it's not just a shameless plug for Husky Research, but also because I think this image is incredibly powerful in terms of showing creativity and that kind of a marriage between creativity and information. And what we tend to think about when we're working on a dashboard or interactive report initiative is that you think about it like a creative process. If you're working, with a brand part of your organization or marketing, anywhere where you need to communicate something, it's really important to think about it creatively so you can reach your audience. So it's that creative process and the analytical one. So here on this slide, we have a lot of information. I know many of you on the call today listening in all have that analytical mindset, and absolutely you're going to bring that to bear in a dashboard project as well. So I want to talk about those two pieces, the data piece and the visualization piece next. So when you are looking to bring dashboards on for a specific project, you are going to be thinking about what that data story is. How do you organize that data for your organization or for the objectives of the project? And if you look at this example here, one thing to really note is that this is a combination of survey research data as well as other metrics from the specific organization. And you have everything on this slide from brand funnel key metrics to sales numbers to social media to advertising alerts, the ability to see what's going on that might be a red flag, and web traffic. So with these kinds of dashboards, you have the ability to integrate both survey research data and other database metrics you might have for your organization. And the key things that you're going to think about is how you want to structure that data and how you want to report it. So just like you might for a PowerPoint presentation, that applies here as well, but you have more flexibility in how you might report it. So what we tend to think about when we're working with our clients is, number one, what are the key metrics you're going to include? If you're using survey data, you'll want to decide which questions to report on specifically. So you might have a 40-question survey, but you're really only reporting 10 key questions, or in this case, really 5 key questions from the brand funnel metrics. You also want to think about how you're reporting on the response choices. So, for example, if you have a 5-point scale, are you reporting all 5 points, or just top box, or just top 2 box? And really go through systematically what questions you're reporting on, or what key metrics, how you're going to report those responses, and then what subgroups you want to report on. And a lot of this is going to feel very familiar because these are things you're used to thinking about when you're working on a traditional research project or other types of analysis. And one of the things that is really nice about this specific example is it's very clean and simple. And we really encourage you to try to keep it simple. And we have the ability, we'll show in a few slides down the road, to filter the data based on different subgroups. So you can choose to have one subgroup show up on your summary page like this, but then filter, say, on gender, or if you have a segmentation that you're using, filter on those segments or drill down more. The next thing you want to think about is whether you're going to be able to go deeper and show trends. So for example, you'll see in a couple places on this slide here that we're showing past 4 weeks. So say you have a monthly tracker, you may want to show trending for that. We do that for a number of clients. We have a weekly tracker, and we are able to drill down and show data by all questions for all weeks. It's quite robust. And then finally, you'll also be thinking about some very tactical things like whether you want to link crosstabs to your dashboard or have verbatims. Ultimately, it's really deciding what data to report and how to organize it. So that's the data piece, but the very important piece that goes hand in hand with that is the visualization. And again, this is more important. A lot of us are maybe not trained as designers, but we have more of that designer mindset as the way that we report out on research and metrics is changing. And again, the DAPRC platform has a lot of flexibility, and they have a lot of templates in terms of showing you different styles. So here, one thing I want to point out is actually the data that you're seeing now on this slide with this white background or off-white background is actually almost the exact same data we just saw in the other example, but the look and feel is very, very different. So you're going to want to take some time to think about your style choices. So specifically, you know, are you using brand standards for your organization? So what color, what font are you going to use? Are you going to use icons? Like in this example, you'll notice here there are no photos, but on the other example, there were both icons and photos. So it seems pretty specific and detailed, but those are some of the things that you are going to be thinking about. And you know, clearly you're going to want to be thinking about how you visualize specific pieces of information. So here we have a data map visual. Maybe you just choose to show these specific numbers instead. And on both of these examples that we've talked about, there are, in this case, little up and down triangles or yellow squares. And if you look at the social media metrics here, it has the up and down triangles as well as the numbers next to it. So how you want to show trending, again, you may drill down on it, but on this summary slide here, you may choose to just have an indication of whether it's gone up or down and by how much from a prior wave. And the ability to drill down. So you can see here it says click on any score for a drill down, and again, you have the ability to go very deep. So you know, we're thinking about the data structure, we're thinking about the visualization, and we do that for what we call the summary page or landing page, and then for each drill down page underneath that. So I make that comparison to a website because if you've ever worked on a website, you know, you think about the number of pages you have. Even if you're, you know, in websites you're scrolling down, it's still considered number of pages. And here you might choose that your dashboard is just one summary page like it is here, or it can be very deep. So the next piece is who is involved. And we actually presented a lot of this presentation at a CRC conference a while back and with corporate researchers. And one of the things that really came up is the stakeholder engagement. There was a lot of interest in that. So we wanted to talk about that here. And engaging stakeholders in any project is important, and some really big projects is a key piece of it. And in implementing interactive reports or dashboards, we've found that engaging stakeholders all along the way is really important. And the first piece, of course, is identifying who those stakeholders are. So here we have decision makers, users, executives, sponsors, And you may have others. And in looking at this, I'm sure you're thinking, well, your executive might be the same person who is your paying for the study, who's your sponsor, and also making decisions. It may actually be a user, and that could be the case. And this is also a circular process or a loop, and that's very intentional because in a number of organizations, you're going back to these folks multiple times. In some organizations, it's an iterative process in terms of how you engage stakeholders as well. And you want to engage the stakeholders from start to finish. So many of you on the call, if not all of you, have worked on a number, probably hundreds of projects, done lots and lots of plans. And if you are used to working on more traditional marketing research studies, you've done project plans for those a lot. And the first piece starts with objective setting and clarifying objectives and getting that stakeholder input up front. That's going to be true for dashboards as well. And specifically, when you're clarifying objectives up front and getting stakeholder input, it's really about understanding their needs in terms of what metrics are going to be most useful for them, how they're prioritizing those, and also getting input on what the look and feel might be. So that first piece is stakeholder input. That second piece on the left there where it says show mock-ups, and by that we mean it's really helpful if you sketch out at least what that landing page is going to look like. That's the most important one. That's going to grab everyone's attention. Again, kind of like your home page on a website. And you can do that with hand sketches, or you might mock something up in PowerPoint or use wireframes. One of the things that we do even before we get to that mock-up stage is we'll show some examples from Daprcy's library where there are a bunch of different styles, and just get a feedback from our client and from stakeholders on what they like better. Do they like A better versus B, or B better versus C? And that helps provide initial direction even before we go to the mock-up stage. And the mock-up stage is really about integrating that data with the style choices, getting feedback, refining it, as it says here, just like if you were in the review process for a questionnaire, for example.
Lila?
Yep.
This is Rudy. I'd like to just add one point. What Lila just talked about is so important. It's almost, think about when you deal with, if you ever had an architect design something or build a house, you don't want to go back after you've agreed to the plans and in the middle of the build say, oh, by the way, we forgot to add a room here or a bathroom there or a parlor here. Not quite as radical as it would be if you were building a house, obviously, but conceptually, it's a very important step, and it also helps you open your mind to get out of the linear, iterative, slide-by-slide PowerPoint mode, and I kind of say crank your head 90 degrees to get into more of a dynamic way of presenting information. So just something to think about. Thanks, Lila.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. You do really want to think about the whole effort or the whole dashboard from start to finish and how the data is going to be structured before you get into the build mode. And from that build mode, you're going to upload your data and get the data in there and then launch it and then engage your stakeholders again. So there's a piece of this where the stakeholders are a bit less involved when the dashboard's being programmed and the data is being put into it, but then you're going to absolutely engage them again. And there's several ways to really get your stakeholders involved. And one of them, which may not have, be top of mind when you're going into it, is just right at the login page. And no, we have not done any work for Acme Corporation, although if there's anyone listening who has a Looney Tunes project, I'm sure the folks here would love to work on it. But this is a way just right from the very get-go at the login page to represent your brand and get your audience and stakeholders drawn into the dashboard. the real critical page is what we call the landing page or summary page, and you really want that to shine. And here is yet another example of a landing page. This is the third one that we've shown here that is yet again very different in terms of style, though some of the data is even similar. And right here you're going to have all your most important data or metrics, and then again the ability to drill down. But you want this page to really pop out and draw your audience in and really tell your story, your organization story, or the specific project story. And again, have it be very clean and simple and not too crowded. So one thing that has come up in different conversations about dashboards and engaging stakeholders is how do you get them involved, and part of that is involving them from the very beginning. Part of that is having branded login pages and a really excellent landing page, but a key piece of it is really letting the stakeholders drive. And what we've seen be very successful with our clients is actually if the users of the dashboard, especially executives, get a one-on-one demonstration of how to use the dashboard. And sometimes that can feel even a little bit scary. I know one of the things that we worry a little bit about researchers is folks internally may be going rogue with data and misrepresenting it. But we've actually found almost just the opposite here with dashboards. Is the more involved they are, the more likely they are to use the data, and they're referencing it in presentations, they're making decisions based on it. And one way to get them really involved is to do one-on-one demonstrations. If you have a very large organization with a lot of people who are going to use the dashboards, you may need to scale that and do larger groups. But with the executives and the leadership team who might be using the dashboard, it's helpful to sit down one-on-one with them and be available to answer questions. Here you can see a few different ways that the dashboard has a lot of depth to it, or can have a lot of depth to it. So we have tabs at the top, for example, here where you can drill down on verbatim comments. You can see benchmarks. Here you have a word cloud. So there's a lot of flexibility, again, in terms of how you can report out the data and get have that greater depth to it. And one of the things, again, that can be really successful is not only to do one-on-one demonstrations with stakeholders, but if you have a stakeholder who you know is tends to be more analytical, who you know will likely use the information, you can have a power user in that person and really encourage that person to engage with the data. The feedback that we've gotten from our clients is that for tracking studies, for instance, or metrics that go out fairly frequently, the conversion from a PowerPoint to a dashboard really made a difference in terms of how the organization was using the information. And they're using it more because it's a more dynamic reporting tool. And finally, what I would say, just to wrap up here, and then we can take questions from anyone who has them, is really, again, looking at these three key things. It's the critical questions to ask yourself on the benefits of faster, compelling results that engage users. It's the how to tell your data story with both the analytical and the creative process that comes into play there. And it's identifying your stakeholders and engaging them from start to finish, from the initial input on what they want to see and how they want to see it, to giving demonstrations and allowing them to really engage with and use the insights. So with that, we'll take questions from anyone who has them.
One question we have is, this process seems a little bit intimidating. The way I do things now is taking data from my tabs and creating PowerPoint. It's very familiar. So how steep is the learning curve?
Well, let me take a quick crack at that. Right off the bat with Daprsea, you don't have to use an outside tab package. You take the data directly from the survey tool and it imports directly into Daprsy. So for example, we have APIs into Qualtrics and Nebo and Confirmit and Unicom Intelligence and SurveyMonkey and Survey Gizmo and all the systems. So you just bring that data straight into Daprsy, assuming you don't have to do post-processing, which might involve some other advanced things that you do, and all your basics like weighting, data processing, custom calculations, metadata cleaning, graphical standards, all that stuff is done in the system. And then if it's a simple ad hoc report, you can literally almost instantly start building charts and tables. If it's more like what Lila was talking about, which is a more involved dashboard, that data just will stitch automatically into that dashboard if it's an ongoing track or an update. So there is a learning curve like any other piece of software, but the software eliminates tons of manual process. Lila, any comments you might want to add?
Yeah, I think that's great perspective. And for the person who answered the question, we have clearly used PowerPoint a lot, do exactly what you're describing. And the difference is, I would say, is that you spend the more time kind of initially with the setup and the design, and then after that there are a lot of efficiencies in terms of bringing in the data. And again, I think the real power is in the ability to visualize information in a much broader range of options than you have with PowerPoint, as well as the ability to be really interactive. And there are some, Daprsy has a template library where you can use a lot of sort of pre-existing templates to bring your data in and be able to leverage those as well.
Yeah, I would add, don't think of Daprsy as a PowerPoint presentation system. I mean, if you have the need, because your clients have the need to have a 300-page PowerPoint deck, and they'll only accept a 300-page PowerPoint deck, there are other options in the market, like a company like eTabs that automates PowerPoint builds. Daprsy doesn't believe in the 300-page PowerPoint deck. We believe in dashboards that have 6 or 8, 10 key slides, like Lila mentioned earlier, that front presentation slide. But then with filters, those 6 or 8 slides can generate thousands, literally thousands of page views. And those page views can then be downloaded if need be to a PowerPoint deck or whatever. So the ability to be able to distribute out information within an organization and get away from PowerPoint versioning and get to more visual, easily consumable data is what we're all about. Any other questions, Jess?
Yeah, we have actually a whole bunch of questions. So the next one is from a qualitative research report perspective. This company has very long reports, and they're wondering, how does it really save time in report writing?
For qual data,
Yes.
they're saying?
Yep.
Well, for report writing, whether you use Word or PowerPoint or Daprsy, somebody physically has to write the report. So that you can't get around. But for qualitative, we actually just spearheaded a study working with one of our partners, Focus Vision, and we now have the ability to take in some of the qualitative data they have and tag all the different sets of responses. Think of it like coding the data, but in a more comprehensive way, and then you can present that with an interactive dashboard through word clouds and other things. So I hope that answers the question. I don't think there's any system that's going to automate the writing of the report.
Okay, our next question is, we have extremely large data sets in Tableau. Is there a way to integrate the two without having to export the Tableau data into Excel and then import that into the Daprsy tool?
That's a really good question, and we actually commingle with a lot of clients that use both Tableau and Daprsy. We currently do not have an API into Tableau. However, we are open to building that, especially given whoever's asking this. If you have large data sets, we can handle that. The way clients currently do it, you can write a script in Tableau. I'll give you, for instance, you have a dashboard, and every let's do something simple. Every week you want to have the dashboard updated to have your advertising, your shipments, and you can also easily integrate in any survey data. So you're getting your advertising and shipments from Tableau. You would write a script in Tableau that says, please generate this Excel file or CSV file at 11:30 p.m. Sunday night, and you would program Daprsy to pick up that file at 11:45 p.m. Sunday night off of a common, secure FTP site or something, and the data just automatically goes in. So that is a simple way to do this, and there are scripts built into systems like Tableau that allow you to do that. If you need to bring in, and usually the data you bring into Daprsy would be more summarized data. You're not going to bring in the whole data set that you're using with Tableau, because Tableau is a BI tool. You're looking to do data mining with that. You're going into terabytes of data. But when you do those data mining and you get the summarized data, and that summarized data obviously can be large files as well, that's when you can write a script to export that into Daprsy. And for the person who asked the question, if you are interested, contact me, because we are more than happy to write an API, because I know Tableau has an open API, so we could write an API into that as well.
Okay, and can the information or data from the dashboard be converted into PowerPoint?
I can take that again, yes.
All right, thank you. Another question here. Does this make sense for ad hoc work rather than trackers?
Say that again, Jess. You muffled your mic.
Does this make sense for ad hoc projects rather than trackers?
If you asked that question 2 years ago, we'd probably say not really, but today I believe Lila hit this point. We now have tons of customized templates, literally thousands of icons and infographics, and more importantly, we have proprietary template capabilities. So again, to give an example, you might have in your company, or you might have a client that has a particular way they want to represent demographics, and that client might want to have these icons, these visuals, these little pictures, a table. Remember, Daprsy allows you to do free-form placement of data, so you don't have to worry about tables. You can have a picture of a dog, a cat, a little kid, and mom and dad, and place data on each one of those, next to those, make those infographics that fill up. Whatever your heart desires, you would make that thing and call it an object, and that particular object would be saved as, demographic number 1 for your company or for that particular client. And now that you've spent the time to make that object, the next time you want to use that object, you just drag that in, and within about 30 seconds you can stitch the data into it. So with this capability, it has turned Daprsy into an ad hoc machine that really allows you to do lots of ad hoc reporting.
Perfect. Thanks, Rudy. Also, how can dashboards help better report on social media and digital performance?
Again, we can integrate any type of data. So there are dashboards we have that show, we have lots of media dashboards we build, for example, that have social media, web mentions, web visits, any of those metrics that you have in there. And, a lot of companies have multiple systems. I've got a system to look at my web. I got a system to look at my social. I've got another, report mechanism to look at my survey data. I've got my Nielsen data sitting over here, and on and on and on. And what Daprsea really does is becomes a reporting layer, and it's analogous to that question that somebody asked about Tableau, which I liked. Daprsea can become the reporting layer that becomes the single source of truth within an organization. And many, many clients use this, especially at the C level. So a CMO or, the president, the CEO goes into one of these dashboards and they see, customer sat, number of open jobs, number of social media mentions, advertising GRPs this month, shipments to date, all of that stuff next to each other. And then, of course, you can drill down as you need to, and you can also control the data and the functionality rights by person. So somebody like in Lila's team who has an analyst, and that analyst might be working with an analyst at a company of theirs, there'll also be a cross-table tool that's available for those people to really dive into the data. Yet that cross-table tool would be suppressed for the view for the CMO who's looking at that summarized view of data. So really the concept is you make one dashboard and you can then serve many, many users and control what they can see, what they can do, and the data feeds they get.
Great. I have a couple questions about the visualization. So what kind of graphs are available, and also what type of map graphics are available?
We have hundreds of maps that are in the system, so you can pick pretty much any country you want. The ones that are not, and states and regions and all that, the ones that are not in the system, you can easily import them, no different than you would in PowerPoint. And what was the first part, Jess?
Graphs. What kind of charts and graphs do you have?
I mean, Lila, you might be a good answer to this one. I mean, I would say we have all your standard charts and tables and graphs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would really say that if, there's so many examples, things that you may not be used to working with if you're used to PowerPoint, and the range is just huge in terms of the amount of visualization. And then I think pretty much if you can think of it and draw it out, that it's probably possible. So again, there's lots of examples if you work better with working off examples, or if you're, bring that creative side and are more of a designer, you can develop something as well.
Yeah, I mean, all the basics are there, and heat maps and, quadrant charts and all the normal stuff you'd expect. What happens is people, and I think what Lila was alluding to, and now that she's become, and her company has become real power users of this, when you think of graphs and charts, when you start using Daprsea, you realize, like tools like Tableau or widget-based, they're charts, tables, charts. All of a sudden with Daprsea you realize, geez, I really don't I really don't want to have a graph here. I'd rather have a visual and have that visual be filled up with a bar, or have the number next to the visual, because the visual, whether it's an infograph or whatever, is a much better representation of that particular process. Like one of the things we do is customer journey and path to purchase. You can literally draw out somebody walking into a store, the aisles they go down, and literally then put all the different satisfaction levels, for example, on the different product categories in that store, or how people interacted when they went through a stadium to go see a ball game, or how their experience was from booking an airline ticket to going through the airport to what happened on the plane, and to right to when they hit their hotel. And you can really make a visual journey. So it really opens up your reporting capability.
All right, and using Daprsea, do you have to manually upload the data into the dashboard, or are there functionalities to pull the data in real time?
Yes and yes. If it's an ad hoc study, you would probably, yes, and yes. Okay, so if you're using one of our tools, let's say you're using Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, you would have an API, and when that study closed field, it would just automatically, the data would automatically be in Daprsy. But if you weren't using one of those tools and you were doing an ad hoc study, you would just take that file and you would bring that SPSS file into the system. It takes, a minute or so to upload the data. If you're using, or if you're doing a tracker, which I know Lila spoke a lot about, if you have the API, obviously that data flows in. But if you don't, then you can do, and what we've done for years and years and years, prior to making all these APIs in the last year, is you can just program any survey tool, whether it's Confirmit or whatever, to say drop this particular SPSS file up on an FTP site, and Daprsy picks up that file and brings it in. So many, many ways to get the data in.
Great. All right, we have a long question here, so give me one sec. You've mentioned loading summary data. Does that mean that we use a tabulation or similar software to first calculate the key metrics and then load, for example, a satisfaction score and percentage awareness? Or do we load the respondent level data? Or can we choose whatever method we would like?
That's an excellent question, and the best practice in Daprsy is to load the raw respondent level data. The huge power of Daprsy is the ability to work with that raw respondent level data. And when you do filtering, everything is done running behind the scenes across tab on the fly. So ideally, we tell people do not pre-run or pre-process the data. That just eliminates tons of steps. Now, one of the reasons you want to do that, and bear with me here, a lot of people say, well, geez, I've got process in place. I close field, I run my crosstabs, I do my weighting, I go into Excel, I do this, I do that. Well, imagine this scenario. You did that, you ran a weight, and you built a PowerPoint deck, and then all of a sudden your client decides, we don't want that weight. We want 0.75, but you use 0.65. Well, some poor schnook analyst somewhere has got to get a pizza and sit up all night to rerun all that data and then manually, table by table, chart by chart, go in and update that data. Now think about what you do in Daprsy. You just go into the weighting module, you change 0.65 to 0.75, click Save. Every single view instantly changes in the system. And there are hundreds and hundreds of examples, whether it's changing a color on a question or going into a question and, you have the word James and a question, and he really wanted to have Jimmy. Well, you could just go into that question, change the name from James to Jimmy, and every instance where that attribute shows up in the system, it changes. So we want the raw respondent level data.
Okay, another question is, how much does it cost to get started with Daprsy?
How high is up? It's we have a whole wide range of, we have starter packages, which you can get in, fairly inexpensively, all the way up to full-blown enterprise engagements. So happy to do a one-on-one and answer that question to someone. Actually, email Jess and she'll put you in touch with the right person. Or myself. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Either way, we'll get you in touch. One of the last questions I have, so if anyone else has questions, make sure to type them into the chat box now, because this will be the last one. Last question is this suitable for transcripts?
For transcripts. Lila? What's your experience there?
Yeah, we've used the dashboard primarily for quantitative studies, but I think if you're looking to link transcripts, that you would be able to do that, if that's what you're talking about. I mean, I would view it similarly to linking verbatim comments, but maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Yeah, can that person who asked it be a little more specific, or can you turn on their mic, Jess?
Yeah.
Because we get in, like we can bring in the actual survey file. You can drill right down to, I could drill right into Lila and see what her response was to the file. Is that what the person's asking about?
Well, let's see. The question came from Ashish, and I'm going to unmute you right now so you can ask this question.
Uh, Hi, I was just trying to understand from a qualitative research perspective because we tend to use transcripts for our analysis. So while I saw almost everything was very quantitative based, with the numbers and so I was just wondering because the one thing that caught my attention was about the verbatims that clients could have access to. You showed it on one of the slides. So I was wondering whether it's how easy is it to do that in the entire report if we were to use your uh, software? Yeah.
Is this for qualitative, you said?
Yes.
Yes, we can take in the open-end responses, and we can do filtering, and you can use systems like Ascribe to do coding on that SPSS file and do that, and then you can go all the way up to we have an API into IBM SPSS modeler to do sentiment analysis and stuff like that. So there's many ways we can get that data in and be able to have you present it. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Welcome.
All right, and that was our last question. So thank you again, Lila and Rudy, for this great webinar. And thank you, everyone, for all of your great questions. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lila.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.